What's up guys, welcome to another track guide. This week we have Imola's first appearance in the Mazda Cup calendar, and being a Brazilian, you guys can imagine how special and bittersweet this place is to me. But about the driving, it's a technical track that rewards decisive and precise inputs while keeping your momentum through those flowy, high-speed corners. Track limits are pretty solid this week. Real Penalty does a good job of giving warnings when cutting the chicane and other corners where cutting would be beneficial. And the only real gray zone in terms of track limits would be around Acque Minerali, but I will address that corner when we get there. If this is your first time driving here, I advise you to watch this track guide before practicing, but don't obsess over details. Just watch it over to get a general idea of key points around the track, like braking references, gear selections, etc., and go practice. After you've spent some laps at your perceived limit, come back to look for all of those details because this video will contain everything that you need to know about this car and track combo. With all of that said, as usual, I would highly recommend you joining my Discord community where you will find the setups I spent the last few days creating for this specific week of racing. And if that's not enough for you, you can also compare yourself to my ghost file and study my Motec telemetry to know exactly where and why our times might differ. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for all future content. Now let's get into the track guide because this is a good one. Coming into Tamburello, I want you to be mindful of the outer edge of the tarmac because that will tell you where our car should be pointing at. So at around the 200 board, slot in parallel to the edge of the track and follow its direction. Start braking as soon as you get your entire car over the tire marks and get the car into 4th gear without upsetting it. This is a situation where being familiar with the dimensions of the car highly pay out. I would highly advise you to brake at an angle compared to the edge of the track, because if you run parallel to it, it's really easy to drop the right rear tire into the grass and it's kind of awkward to get the car into slip angle. You should also resist the urge to brake later. Even though it is highly possible, you will end up getting a bad line and overslowing the car. This corner is not about how hard you can get into it, but how hard you can get out of it. Go over the inside curb with at least 50% throttle and position yourself well for the right-hander. By this point, you should already be at 100% throttle and aiming to place the sausage curbs in the middle of the car. Try to keep steering movements to a minimum and take everything as head-on as you can. Any sort of aggressive steering movement will highly upset the car and destroy your momentum, since the car is very on edge going through these curbs, even with very well set up dampers. At Villeneuve, use the same technique we used last week for Copse at Silverstone and downshift into 4th at full throttle before lifting off. Turn in at the 50 board still under power and use every single inch of curb so we can get the best possible line for the exit. As soon as we get back on tarmac, downshift into 3rd and use the brakes to get the nose in for the right-hander. Make sure you rev match for this downshift because the car is very on edge during this section and the rear tire lock caused by not rev matching will make you spin. Get back on power very early, but be careful to not go too wide because the AstroTurf massively slows you down. If you feel like you're going wider than you would want to, short shift into 4th gear and that will help you bring the car around. For Tosa, brake 2 cars lengths after the 50 board and be careful to not overslow the car since this is an uphill corner. Get on power early and use all available track on exit. This is the place where you cannot be insecure or ambiguous with your inputs. Firmly hit the brakes just before the tarmac turns dark and use the weight shift to get the nose in. This is a very awkward corner if you don't have that extra front end grip from the braking, because the car just wants to understeer and float through this corner. Carry the brakes slightly right up until the apex and go over the inside curb with at least 50% throttle. If you find yourself going wide on exit, straighten out the steering wheel, because if you turn on top of the AstroTurf, you might spin. Into Acqua Minerale, downshift into 4th and get back on power for a split second before the second right-hander. As soon as the car unloads from the first leg of the turn, brake hard in a straight line using every inch of the track. Wait until the last moment to start turning in, because we need the most amount of room possible for this exit. In this case, I ended up going wider than I would like to, because this AstroTurf slows you down massively, and this cost me probably something close to 1/10 of a second, even though it might look like I gained an advantage. For the chicane, brake a car's length after the 50 board and get the car into 3rd gear, which is the gear we are going to use for this corner. Avoid getting into ABS while turning, because the understeer that the ABS usage creates will make you overshoot the first apex, which is the most important one. Aim to go over these curbs with your outside wheels. So for the right-hander, use your left wheels on the curb, and for the left-hander, use your right wheels for the curb. Just be careful to not overdo it, because it will invalidate your lap. Take each of these curbs with 50% throttle to unload the front of the car and stabilize it. As soon as you land from the second one, smash the power and lightly guide the car to keep it off the AstroTurf on exit. If you are too aggressive with the steering, you're gonna lose traction or even spin the car. Into the first Rivazza, braking references are really hard to come by, but this darker tire mark should be your braking reference. When trail braking for this corner, release the brakes more than you normally would before starting to turn in, since it's very steep downhill section and the front tires are very loaded. If you don't do that, you're gonna get into ABS and the car is gonna understeer. I didn't use the inside curb here, but you should. This mistake probably cost me another 1/10 of a second. Get on power early and look to set yourself up as wide as you can for the second Rivazza. Turn in as the AstroTurf on the outside ends and aim to graze the inside curb to use as much of the track as you can and get on the main straight with as much speed as possible. Just slightly lift off the throttle when going over the curb, because it might upset the car at full power. Upshift at 6500 RPM and try to minimize travel distance and apex every slight turn along the straight. So that was a lap around Imola with the Mazda MX-5 Cup. I probably could have gone into the 202.7s or even 202.6s, but I couldn't spare the time to do it for the track guide. So you can expect me hunting this target lap time throughout the week. I hope you learned something from this track guide and enjoyed the hot lap at the end. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one.